Well, welcome back. And as I told you at the beginning, we are all about books today. And we've done things for children. And now we have the history of Travelers Rest, South Carolina. And I have, it's called A Sense of Place. And I have with me the lady who wrote the book. And I'm so glad to have Marion Cooper with me. And you are an educator and a counselor. And you were, Travelers Rest is home, right?
Yes, I grew up there. Grew up in Travelers Rest and went to Travelers Rest High School, and still have very many dear friends there, as well as relatives in Travelers Rest.
And this book, how did you happen to, this is all about the history. You think, oh, you know, nothing ever happened. It isn't New York. Well, believe me, this book is filled with wonderful stories about people and events.
Exactly. I hope so. I hope so, and I hope that it's interesting, because I wanted to tell not only about the history of Travelers Rest, but also about some of the characters in Travelers Rest and some of the humorous things that happen, and small town, how interesting a small town can be.
And I don't think, perhaps it's unfortunate, but I don't think many of our places like Travelers Rest are staying small town anymore.
Well, Travelers Rest certainly isn't. It is in no way the town that I grew up in, because it is just burgeoned with exciting restaurants and exciting festivals, and I think a lot of it has to do with the Swamp Rabbit Trail that goes right through Travelers Rest now, and as many as I read recently, as many as 500,000 people use that trail each year.
That's amazing.
And many of those people are tourists or from the general area of Travelers Rest, and some people come from far away to go on to attend some of those races and biking things and events that they have on the trail. That brings them right into the middle of Travelers Rest. And because so much is going on in Travelers Rest now, they're charmed. They're excited. They say, wow, this is...
I mean, it used to, there was nothing there.
Right, it was a service station here, and but now the city fathers and mothers have seen fit to widen the streets and put in pagodas and little pocket.
And there are gift shops and restaurants and...
Right, and little pocket parks all over the place. And someone told me recently that the farmers market that's advertised on the back of the book is one of the 10 biggest farmers markets in the nation.
Now this is on Saturday.
Yes.
Saturday
yes,
morning.
Yes, from I think it's 9 to 12.
And people come from far and wide.
Exactly, and it's more of an upcountry market now, instead of just wasn't there when I was growing up. It's just so much exciting is going on in Travelers Rest now.
Why did you write this book?
Well, there's several reasons. Excuse me. Please excuse me. First of all, it was because I grew up in Travelers Rest. Secondly, is because my family goes back 5 generations in Travelers Rest.
So they were there at the beginning almost.
Almost at the beginning, yes. Goes back to my great-great-grandparents. And thirdly is because we had, in 2008, we had our bicentennial celebration. You may remember that. And Travelers Rest having a bicentennial celebration just caused all kinds of things to happen. Things just mushroomed. First of all, we had the Travelers Rest Historical Society was created, and pretty soon we had 190 members. That's a lot for a little town.
Yes, it is.
And when those members started getting together and talking about what they wanted to do about the bicentennial, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then the Historical Society has been so active. It has been well, they did another book first, and it was more of a picture book by Arcadia Press. Arcadia has done an awful lot of those sort of snapshot picture books, and that was the first thing. And then the society was very excited about doing the bicentennial and doing it right, and so the city and the historical society, and so very many people in the community got so excited about the bicentennial. And then afterwards, what can we do? What else? How can we keep this momentum going? And then we got started on, we have a museum there now, a museum in Travelers Rest. Oh yes, and it needs to get bigger. We want it already needs to expand. And then we decided that we really needed to do an update on the book. Now, 2 people have done books on Travelers Rest. One is Mr. Man Batson, who taught me history in the 8th grade at Travelers Rest. And he has written a book called The History of Upcountry Traveler, of the upper part of Greenville County, which he has taken magazine articles and newspaper articles from way back, from the very beginning on up, and that's very interesting for a reference book. And then Mrs. Mildred Goodlett wrote a book called Travelers Rest at Mountain's Foot, which was published in 1966. She's a sweet lady that went to my church, and I guess I was so impressed with her book too but a lot has happened since 1966, so we decided that another book needed to be written that would incorporate all these wonderful things that are happening in Travelers Rest now. And that's why I wrote the book.
Well, I don't think
end.
You don't want to lose. There's something quite charming and I guess maybe even romantic about a town like, even the name.
Yes, yes.
Because I had somebody visit me once from way far away, and they were fascinated. What a wonderful name for a place to live, Travelers Rest. And they asked me to drive them to Travelers Rest so they could see it. And that's been a long time ago. And I think it is. It's kind of a special place.
Well,
and it's nestled in the foothills.
Exactly. Do you know how it got its name?
No.
Well, it started out as a stop for people traveling from the mountain, over the mountains, down to take their produce and their hogs and their turkeys and their pigs and their cattle to market, because they had to come across the mountains and down the other side and then on down to maybe Greenville or Georgia, someplace like that, Columbia. And they would stop there and camp. The drovers. So it started with the drovers. The drovers would come over, and even going back farther, some say that the Cherokees used to stop there on the Cherokee Trail, going down to trade with other tribes.
So the Cherokee Indians even used.
That's what I understand. Yeah. And then it was a stop when they began to have stagecoaches. It was a stop for the stagecoach.
So this goes
and
back
Travelers Rest at all those places at that spot.
So that name just evolved.
I guess it did, and it started back. It was named Travelers Rest from 1808. 1808 was when the first post office was made there, and why they named. I guess they named it Travelers Rest because of the drovers, as far as I know, and it wasn't much of a town then. It was just a little settlement.
And so from a very sleepy beginning, it has emerged into quite a charming place. And there are restaurants and gift shops, and there is a lot of history there. There is. And a lot of one chapter in the book is just about the famous people who have made a name for themselves. Right. I'll say that, who grew up in Travelers Rest. people that most of us would recognize, you think?
John B. Watson, who was the father of behaviorism and was celebrated at Furman University back in the 1970s. John B. Watson had his doctorate in psychology and grew up in Travelers Rest. Dr. Few, who was president of Duke University,
All right. So
grew up right above Travelers Rest. So many people who have been in sports and motorcycle racing, and two people who have both made a name for themselves in opera came from Travelers Rest.
So you have a variety of people who have succeeded, who came from, really was a very sleepy little place.
That's
and
right.
And it is no longer a sleepy little place. And I'm not sure we want to lose all that.
Well, I don't think we will, because even though it's growing and even though it's exciting, people are coming there now to make it even more charming, like the bistros and
there are restaurants there, and of course a great market on Saturday morning, which is one of the big ones in the Southeast. It has grown, you know.
Right.
But if you're interested in history, and especially in the Carolinas, then this is a book you would want to look into. And I want to say that Marion, very graciously, all of the proceeds from this book are donated to the Travelers Rest Historical Society. Do I have that right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's true. That's true. Yeah, and I was one of the founding members of it. I was one of the charter members, so that's my way of giving back to it. And there's so many people's names are in this book, and there's so much in the appendices that I don't believe is anyplace else. Like, who were the people that had the original land grants in Travelers Rest? Who were all the people who've been on city council and in governmental positions in Travelers Rest? Who are the people who, from the Revolutionary War on to the present time, have been in military service in Travelers Rest? All that's in the appendix.
Yeah, and it is true that this Travelers Rest goes back to the very beginning of our nation. I mean, you talked about
25 years after the beginning of our nation was when Travelers Rest became a little spot on the map.
So if you go to Travelers Rest, you're going to a historic place, and most of us who live around here don't even think about that.
No, but that's okay.
Yeah, but it's worth investigating.
Oh, absolutely.
And I just hope it doesn't grow and get too big.
I don't think it will. I don't think it will. But the book tells about some of the interesting things about the people of Travelers Rest, and that's why we called it a sense of place, because so many people have contributed to this book. Dot Bishop has written one chapter. Marie Williams Batson has written another chapter in it. And so many people have contributed to it, and a lot of young people too, because we referred to the people who were the students. 20 years of student writing they interviewed historical people and visited historical places, and then they wrote about it in echoes. So some of that's in here too.
Well, you're invited, if you're interested in history, to get this book, and of course the proceeds go to the Historical Society, which is wonderful. And you're invited, if you haven't been, to go to Travelers Rest and enjoy a very precious part of America. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. God bless you. Keep on writing.
Thank you.
Marion Cooper. And wherever you are,
Cooper Bryan.
You keep reading to your children. We'll see you next time.